Yorkshire has over 70 surviving castles, more than any other English county. Most people know the famous ruins, Scarborough on its headland, Richmond above the Swale, the hollow towers of Helmsley. What they don't process properly is this. A startling number are still private homes, not museums, not heritage sites with velvet ropes and guided tours. Homes. Families sleep in Norman keeps. They cook breakfast in rooms built during the siege warfare of the 14th century. They lock the same doors their ancestors locked for literal centuries. Some of these families have occupied the same stone walls since before the printing press. Others bought in recently and chose to carry the weight forward rather than let the structure pass to the state. 10 Yorkshire castles where people still live inside, ranked from remarkable to nearly impossible to believe. The most extraordinary, saved for last. 1. Ripley Castle, Nidderdale, North Yorkshire, the gateway to the Dales proper, flat agricultural land giving way to rising moors. The Ingleby family received the Ripley estate in 1320 from Edward III as reward for service, 700 years ago. The current structure, a fortified Tudor manor, was built in 1555, but it retains a 15th century gatehouse tower. That tower is crucial. It marks the transition from medieval fortress to defensible home, the moment when Yorkshire began to feel safer, but not safe enough to abandon walls entirely. During the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell stayed here after the Battle of Marston Moor in 1644. Family legend says Lady Ingleby held him at gunpoint to protect royalist fugitives hiding elsewhere in the building. The story may be embroidered. The fact of his stay is not. Here is the survival decision. After the Second World War, estate duty taxes gutted aristocratic families across England. Manor houses were handed over to the National Trust with something close to relief. Better to lose control than lose everything. The Inglebys faced the same crisis in the late 1940s. Sir John Ingleby, 6th Baronet, made a different choice. He opened the castle to paying visitors in 1949, one of Yorkshire's first private heritage sites, funded by admission fees rather than state subsidy. The family stayed, they monetized their inheritance to keep it. Sir Thomas Ingleby, 6th Baronet, and his family live there now. Private apartments within the castle, off limits to visitors. They operate a working estate, farmland, a deer park, commercial walled gardens that produce for sale. The castle runs as a venue, weddings, tours, corporate events, but the family quarters remain sealed. You can walk through the Great Hall, you cannot walk upstairs. From the top floor, the view is across the estate village, rebuilt in the 1820s to resemble an Alsace-Lorraine village because the then owner's wife was homesick, and beyond to Nidderdale and the Dales rising in the distance. 700 years of the same family does not mean it has been easy. It means that at every point when walking away would have been simpler, someone chose to stay. Now they live above the gift shop, in rooms where Cromwell slept, running a business out of their inheritance. 2. Skipton Castle, the gateway town to the Yorkshire Dales, Craven district, built on limestone that rises sharp from the valley floor. Robert de Romeu built it around 1090, immediately after the harrying of the north, William the Conqueror's scorched earth campaign that devastated Yorkshire and killed tens of thousands. The castle was a Norman consolidation fortress, controlling the route into the Dales, holding down land taken by slaughter. The Clifford family took possession in 1310. They held it for centuries. They fortified it. They defended it. During the Civil War, Skipton was one of the last royalist strongholds in the north. It withstood a 3-year siege from 1642 to 1645. 3 years, longer than almost any other fortress in England. When it finally surrendered, Cromwell ordered it slighted, partially demolished to prevent reuse. Lady Anne Clifford rebuilt it. She was in her 60s, the 1650s. Cromwell's men had torn down sections of the walls, destroyed towers, made it strategically useless. She reconstructed it stone by stone, not as a fortress this time, as a home, as a statement. She planted a yew tree in the Conduit Court in 1659. It still grows there. The survival decision came 300 years later. In 1958, the Clifford estate could have sold to developers or transferred everything to state care. Wealthy exit, clean hands. Instead, descendants created the Skipton Castle Preservation Trust, private family oversight, legal protection, but no surrender of control. The castle has never been handed to the National Trust or English Heritage. It remains the property of the same bloodline that held it in the 1300s. The Hesketh family oversees it now, through inheritance lines that trace back to the Cliffords. Not a full-time residence, but private apartments within the castle still exist, still used during family visits. The castle operates as a self-funding heritage site. Entrance fees cover maintenance. No state subsidy. The medieval market charter still holds. Every week, the outer courtyard hosts a market, a charter right dating back centuries. The castle remains an economic centre, not just a monument. From the top floor, the conduit court below, Lady Anne Clifford's yew tree, nearly 400 years old, and beyond, the market town of Skipton spreading toward Airedale. 3 years under siege, demolished by Parliament, rebuilt by one woman who refused to let it die, then held by her descendants who refused the easy option when it came again. 3. Hornby Castle, Wensleydale, North Yorkshire. Strategic position controlling the approach to the Northern Dales. The Neville family expanded it in the 14th century during their period of northern dominance, the same family that produced Warwick the Kingmaker. After the Nevilles' downfall following the Wars of the Roses, the castle passed through the Conyers family, then the St. Quintins. In the 1760s, the medieval core was encased in Georgian Gothic revival, fashionable castellations, pointed windows, deliberate romanticism. Controversial then. The original stonework disappeared under the new facade, but that Georgian shell saved the medieval structure from demolition. The core survived because it was hidden. The survival decision came twice, first during the 1930s agricultural depression, then again in the 1970s when maintaining large estates became economically brutal. The castle could have fragmented, sold in pieces, converted, abandoned. In 2012, Kevin and Rosemary Hill bought it. Not an inherited estate, not an ancient lineage, a couple who made their money outside aristocracy and chose to take on a Yorkshire castle and everything that comes with it. They could have bought anything, anywhere. They chose this. They live there full time now. Private residence with occasional event hosting, weddings, corporate use, but home first. They manage the surrounding estate, tenanted farms, grouse moor, grazing land. They've undertaken significant restoration. This isn't passive occupation. They're actively preventing decay, room by room, season by season. From the top floor, Wensleydale stretching west toward Hawes, the River Wensum below, patchwork sheep pastures rising toward the Pennines. Hornby proves the chain doesn't need to be unbroken, it just needs to be picked up. Sometimes occupation isn't about bloodline, it's about the decision to shoulder the weight when you could walk away. 4. Marmion Tower, West Tanfield, near Ripon, North Yorkshire. Not a full castle, but a fortified gatehouse built around 1400 by the Marmion family as a defensible entrance to their now lost manor complex. This is the transition period made stone. Yorkshire was becoming safer, raids less frequent, border walls cooling, but not safe enough to abandon defences entirely. So the Marmions built a tower with arrow slits and battlements, but also large windows and decorative stonework. Defensible and domestic at once, the family died out in the 15th century. The tower passed through local gentry, used as lodging, then farm storage. By the early 20th century, it was derelict. In 1930, it was given to state care. English Heritage's predecessor took guardianship. The tower became a monument, protected, preserved, officially managed. But here is the detail that matters. The adjacent Tanfield Hall remained privately occupied, and the family living there took on key holding responsibilities, showing duties, site maintenance coordination. The tower is legally state property, but the family next door still unlocks it, still walks visitors through, still keeps the story alive. This is hybrid occupation. The medieval structure is protected by law and public funding, but private residents give it context, continuity, human presence. It hasn't become anonymous. It hasn't become just a reference number in a heritage database. From the top of the tower, St. Nicholas Church in West Tanfield, also medieval, the River Yore below, the flat agricultural lands of the Vale of York spreading east. Sometimes occupation isn't about ownership. It's about refusing to let something become a label on a map, a pin on a tourist website, a site you visit once and forget. The family at Tanfield Hall doesn't own Marmion Tower anymore, but it's still theirs, because they've chosen not to walk away. 5. Barden Tower, Wharfdale, deep in the Yorkshire Dales. Originally a hunting lodge in the Forest of Barden, a vast medieval deer park owned by the Cliffords of Skipton. Henry Clifford, the shepherd lord, who spent his youth hidden as a shepherd during the Wars of the Roses, transformed it into a fortified residence in the late 15th century after reclaiming his titles. Lady Anne Clifford restored it again in the 1650s as part of her Northern Reclamation campaign. She lived there periodically. After her death, it fell into ruin, a romantic shell in the Dales for 3 centuries. By the 1970s, it was at risk of total collapse. The Howson family, who had acquired the estate, undertook private restoration. Controversially, they chose to make part of it habitable rather than stabilize it as a picturesque ruin. Sections were converted into residential apartments in the 1980s and 1990s. Conservationists objected, but the decision meant the tower had living occupants for the first time since the 17th century. It contains multiple private apartments now, not a single family residence, long-term leases held by individuals who chose this. The ground floor remains ruined and accessible to the public, managed by private trust. The tower exists in 2 states simultaneously, romantic ruin and lived-in home. The occupants include Dales farmers, retired professionals, 1 artist, people who chose remote historic occupation over modern convenience, 3-foot-thick stone walls, no central heating in some sections, the sound of wind through medieval windows, from the occupied top floor, straight down Wharfdale, Bolton Priory ruins visible in the distance, Barden Fell rising north, part ruin, part home. You can walk the ground floor and see sky through Gothic arches. Upstairs, someone is making tea. 6. Danby Castle, North York Moors. Remote now, more remote then. Wild upland country where the moors break steep into valleys, built in the 14th century by the Barons Latimer as their seat in one of Yorkshire's hardest landscapes. Catherine Parr lived here as Baroness Latimer during her 2nd marriage, before becoming Henry VIII's 6th wife. The castle was her home, these rooms, this view. After the Latimer line ended, the castle passed through various hands. Part of it fell into ruin. But crucially, part of it was always kept as a working farm building. By the 19th century, it was a working farm with castle ruins attached, a common Yorkshire fate for structures too useful to abandon, too expensive to fully maintain. The survival decision was never dramatic. There was no crisis point, no heroic restoration, just successive farming families who kept using the habitable wing, who stored hay in the medieval hall, who patched roofs when they leaked because they needed the space. Post-World War II, the farm could have been separated from the ruins. The castle could have become a complete ruin, picturesque and empty. Instead, farming families maintained occupation of the working sections. In the 1990s and 2000s, a family purchased the property and chose to restore the occupied wing while leaving the ruins as they were. A private farming family lives there now. Name not disclosed. They value privacy over heritage tourism. The castle functions as working farm headquarters, livestock, upland grazing, moorland management. The ruined sections are accessible to walkers. The family allows respectful access, but doesn't advertise it. This is the most working class occupation on the list. No public tours, no wedding venue, just farming from a castle. Catherine Parr's manor house became a hay barn, then a farmhouse again. From the occupied wing, the North York moors spreading in all directions, heather uplands, the Esk Valley cutting below. Danby didn't survive because of heritage grants or aristocratic pride. It survived because farmers needed the rooms. The castle stayed alive because it stayed useful. 7. Walton Castle, near Swainby, North York Moors. A Norman Motte and Bailey site developed into stone castle controlling the approach to the Cleveland Hills. The castle was slighted during the Civil War, ruined, but the manor house immediately adjacent, the estate building, remained occupied. The defensive castle died. The estate house survived. This represents a common Yorkshire pattern. The fortification becomes a ruin, the residence continues, and the occupation never actually breaks. The Meynell family held it for centuries. Later it passed to local gentry who kept the estate intact. The castle ruins could have been severed from the estate house in the 20th century, sold separately, isolated as a picturesque monument. Instead, successive owners maintained unified ownership, treating the ruins as part of the living estate rather than an archaeological site. In the 2000s, the estate was purchased by a family who actively researched and conserved the ruins while living in the house. The castle itself is now in guardianship. English Heritage manages the monument, but the estate remains privately occupied, with the owners acting as resident custodians. A private family lives in the estate house now. 18th century structure, but on the original medieval manor site. The castle ruins are in the garden, 50 meters from the kitchen door. A scheduled ancient monument in the backyard. This is residential custodianship. They don't own the ruins legally, but they occupy the site and maintain visitor access. They manage woodland and grazing land around it. The ruins aren't isolated, they're part of a working landscape. From the estate house, the ruined castle gatehouse in the foreground, 14th century stonework. Beyond, the Cleveland Hills and the North York Moors rising. The castle is a ruin. The occupation isn't. 8. Newton Hall, near Bedale, North Yorkshire. A fortified manor house rather than full castle, but with tower defences and a moat, typical of gentry families during the late medieval period when North Yorkshire was still bandit country, built 14th to 15th century when Scottish raids and local lawlessness made fortification necessary even for lesser gentry. The structure represents the Yorkshire Pale, the network of fortified manors that supplemented major castles. It passed through local gentry families for centuries without ever gaining national fame, which ironically helped it survive. No strategic value meant no Civil War slighting. The survival decision came mid-20th century when many such manor houses were simply abandoned or demolished. Too small to be stately homes, too awkward to modernize. In the 1980s, a private individual purchased the hall and undertook careful restoration, choosing to live in it as a family home rather than convert it to commercial use. The decision to keep it domestic and private, no hotel, no wedding venue, no tours, is itself a radical preservation choice in the modern heritage economy. A private family lives there now. Owners not publicly identified. They maintain privacy. The property is not open to the public in any capacity. The family maintains the moat, gardens, and medieval fish ponds as part of ongoing estate management. The surrounding land is tenanted farmland, keeping the medieval estate model functionally intact. From the tower, across the Vale of Mowbray toward the North York Moors. You cannot visit Newton Hall. You cannot book it. The family chose privacy over profit. It survives because someone decided they would rather live history than sell it. 9. Bolton Castle, Wensleydale. Built 1378 to 1399 by Richard Le Scrope, one of the finest quadrangular castles in England. Not royal construction, but a northern family asserting regional dominance. Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned here in 1568. The same walls. The Scrope family lost it after Civil War forfeitures. It passed to the Powlett family, later Ord Powlett, later Lords Bolton. After the Civil War, Bolton Castle was deliberately damaged, slighted to make it unusable as a military stronghold. Parliament's engineers did their work. Walls breached, towers weakened, meant to be the end. But the family kept living in the towers, kept patching roofs, kept refusing to leave. In the 1990s, the current Lord Bolton made the defining choice, undertake major restoration to make the castle fully habitable again for his own family, rather than turn it entirely into a museum or hand it to the state. Controversial, expensive, but it meant reoccupation after centuries of partial use. The Honourable Harry Algar Ord Powlett and his family live in private apartments within the castle now, the Southwest Tower and adjacent ranges. They run it as a heritage business, public access, weddings, holiday cottages and other sections. They manage the estate, farming, shooting, woodland, from the family apartments straight down Wensleydale to the west, Pennine Hills beyond. The same view Mary Queen of Scots had from her prison, 10 Markenfield Hall. By 1981, Markenfield Hall had holes in the roof and cows in the courtyard. Lady Deirdre Curtis bought it, moved in, and spent 40 years restoring it with her own hands, often living without heat in near medieval conditions. She died in 2022. Her family still lives there, still restoring, still keeping the moat full. These castles survived because someone refused the easy option. They didn't hand over the keys to the state. They didn't walk away wealthy. They stayed, or came back, or bought in, and shouldered the burden. Yorkshire's castles are still occupied because occupation is a choice, and these families keep making it every single day. Some inherited the weight, others picked it up voluntarily. All of them live with stone walls, medieval staircases, and the knowledge that what they occupy will outlast them. That's the trade-off.